Okay, well, let's get to Craig Carmichael. He's going to talk about the life of Titan.
Okay, I've come to talk about life on Titan, but first, some people seem to have expressed interest in an update on my electric hubcap car motor project that I talked about last year. So I'm going to spend about 1 minute on that. I've improved the motors. They're easier to make or produce. They'll be 95% efficient. And I'm having motor making workshops. If anyone wants one, see me. And I hope to have kits for making the whole motor this year. The torque converter is much closer to working, but it's not there yet. I've just recently been thinking outside the box, and I've come up with another motor. I call it the electric wheel. It will be a 26-inch diameter. All the torque elements are around the rim. It'll have fantastic torque. It'll drive a car wheel directly with no torque converter, no gears, nothing. And it uses the same parts as the other motors, which is helpful. And I think it's the future of car design. So you've got this great big 26-inch wheel with magnets all around and the coils in the other part. Okay, now on to my main topic, life on Titan. And I feel a bit like the little kid saying the emperor has no clothes, because it's so obvious, and yet none of the scientists are saying anything about it, and they're not offering any alternative explanations about what we're seeing. So Titan is a planet that's most like the Earth in the whole solar system. It orbits Saturn. In size, it's between Mercury and Mars.
You should be able to scroll with the mouse. The pointy thing is the mouse. Can you scroll up and down with that? Or do I have to do it for you? Will it go up and down?
Okay, go down a screen. So a few Titan stats. It orbits at Saturn every 16 days, so its day is once every 16 Earth days. And it's like the Earth in that it has an atmosphere with about the same pressure as the Earth, but it's very alien because it's really cold, and it has seas and lakes and rivers and rain, but it's liquid methane instead of water. Gravity 1/7 of the Earth, and the air, lakes, rivers. We'll get down to my next point. Well, it's 30 Earth years. Go down, there's a map there. And now the liquid methane on Titan has tremendous tides that are caused by orbiting closer to Saturn and then farther away. And of course, as it gets closer to Saturn, the liquid wants to rise up. And it basically has one face that faces Saturn and one that faces away. And so the tides actually go to those 2 points that you might call the Saturn pole and the anti-Saturn pole. And so the liquid all flows that way. And also, as it gets close to Saturn, the libration takes it back and forth 60 kilometers. So it gets washed like a washing machine and pulled this direction. And as it goes away from Saturn, it goes the other direction. So what you find is almost predictable. There are 4 seas at the equator. They're at 0 degrees longitude and 270, 180, and 90 degrees. And there's channels that flow between them. And why those take a north and a south, I'm not sure, but they all do. And so this also carries sediment that moves Titan gradually around. It doesn't always face one face to Saturn like everything else does, because the silt keeps getting moved around and changes its center of gravity. So it actually makes one rotation relative to Titan every 1,000 Earth years. And so in 500 years, the side that's facing away from Saturn now will face towards Saturn. And you say, well, why didn't the scientists notice some of this stuff? And go to another screen. I've got a bunch of reasons. Oh, there's some of the silt flow from the Cassini imager and from the Huygens lander that's oriented this way. It's flowing from west to east. And the next screen, why didn't the scientists see some of this stuff? And there's a bunch of reasons that I don't have time to get into. So go to up another one. If we go up, center these here. These are some of the images from the Huygens lander. These are the real raw images. Then what's been done is they've been contrast enhanced. The contrast has been magnified. Now this is one I did with the contrast magnified 300% for all of them. So the dark looks darker and the light looks lighter. What they've done is contrast enhance them by inconsistent amounts and unknown amounts. And what you have here that looks like liquid with few features dimly seen under it, over here, what is that? Nobody can tell. And they've presented those right-hand ones as being the raw images. And I think they've fooled the whole science community as well as the public. And another thing that makes it obvious that it's liquid is that it gradually gets darker as you're looking more downward, the same as it does on Earth in liquid. That isn't a characteristic of land. So moving right along to the life, okay, there's another example of contrast enhancement. These are tide pools. There's the original picture. And if you make it black and white with heavy contrast magnification, you have no idea that there's liquid there. Okay, next. And now okay, keep going. I've pinpointed where the Huygens landed right here. The science community has yet to place these last three lowest elevation images up. We don't have much time, so life. Okay, there's lots of spectrographic evidence. If they had seen almost any of this stuff on Mars that they're seeing on Titan, they'd have been jumping up and down and it'd be in the headlines, Mars is alive, it has life. But when it's on Titan, where they weren't expecting to see life, no amount of evidence is enough to. And so the next thing is, what do you see when you look for life on a world? Well, you think of animals. Carl Sagan put animals in the desert and photographed them from the air to see what could be seen. But if you look down at the Earth and you look at the Amazon rainforest, you don't see monkeys and birds. You see a forest canopy. The vegetation is huge compared to the animals. And so that's what you see as vegetation. And then you say, well, what kind of vegetation would we see on Titan? And the answer is really big vegetation because it's 1/7 gravity. Trees can only grow so tall on Earth because of the gravity. You work it out, it's 120 meters roughly for the tallest trees. And on Titan, if you use the same formulas with 1/7 gravity and liquid methane instead of water, trees can grow to over 1 kilometer tall. And they do. So there's aquatic vegetation on a scale that's completely unknown on Earth. Where Huygens came down is in the duny tropical seas. I forgot to mention those tides ripping back and forth create dunes, which are actually under the liquid. And here's an image composed of many of the images of the lander that as it parachuted down, it was turning. So it took all these pictures. And scientists thought this was an island at first, before they decided that none of it was liquid, and thought these were rivers and things. And but you look at them, and they're not like rivers. They're like branches and leaves, and that's exactly what they are. You look at this one. There's a root comes from up here, the stem goes up here, it goes along here and along here, and it has what look like sessile leaves coming off straight off the trunk there. And then the lower level image, you can see it's elevated up above the rest of the terrain. And this is another thing they said is it's incredibly, huge terrain. And this leaf here is casting a clear shadow on the water. It's a huge leaf. And so then the next picture is from the ground, and they're calling these rocks, and yet there's stems and things, and you can clearly see stems and leaves. Now, this wasn't very clear in the original images, but it's more clear with processed images. And if you look at the land areas, the radar images are clearly showing forest that gives the same pattern as earth forests, and you can't really say that it looks like anything but forest. And the last thing is a radar image, and I emailed this to a professional cartographer who looks at satellite images of the Earth every day. And I didn't tell him it was Titan. I just said, what do you make of it? And he said, well, it's mixed forest and a shallow lake with, it looks like vegetation growing out of the lake. And it looks like the water would come in here and go out there. You know, and then he was trying to guess what satellite had taken it. And he was perturbed because he couldn't figure it out. So I eventually, of course, told him it was Titan, and that threw him for a loop, and it was the Cassini. And I think there's one more image, but it didn't get on the web. But it's just a landscape, and you can see all the trees, just forests from the pole down to near the equator where the seas take over. And that's my take on life on Titan.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is January 18th, 2013. Here are your news updates for today. It is cold. It's very cold in Central Florida. Oh, it's just very cold. I think it's going to get real close to freezing tonight. Alrighty then. Let's first go to the Watchers watching the world. MIT neuroscientists find the brain can identify images seen for as little as 13 milliseconds. New form of quantum matter discovered. A natural 3D counterpart to graphene. Also, a breakthrough in understanding the secret life of prion molecules. So, isn't that the ones that cause mad cow disease? Low oxygen levels likely cause mass fish die-offs in Nevada, USA. If you go to Dutch Census Channel, him and Tattoo 1009 now have a radio show. And he was stating that it was some of the mass die-offs, I guess like the BB Arkansas and some other ones with the fish. He's saying it was possibly from some type of off-gassing of a fracking facility. Heads up! That's what Dutch Sense is saying with all his information and logging and research. He's saying it's off-gassing, going into the atmosphere, and that's why the birds died. And also where the fish died, I guess there was some kind of off-gassing from a fracking center. Alright, so heads up on that. Also, giant trench discovered under Antarctic ice. So there's a giant trench. Like, wow, it almost sounds like the one that's like on Mars. It's bigger than the bigger than the Grand Canyon. So that almost sounds like, since Mars doesn't have water on it, it almost sounds like the same type of trench that's displayed. You can see it on Mars. Alrighty then. That's my opinion. Okay, what else? Arctic cyclones more common than previously thought. And let's move on. It's so cold. It's too cold to wear the glasses. They'll freeze on my head. Alright, let's see. Let's go to the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. California governor declares drought emergency. Also, gravity. Japan to test magnetic net that can fish out floating space junk. Yeah, they should only be working on Fukushima. I believe I said that yesterday. Alright. Let's see here. E&E News, Energy News. Japan TV. So this must be Fukushima. Okay. Japan TV. Problem on their hands at Fukushima. Constant flow of water pouring from foot-wide hole at reactor 3. They don't know where water is coming from. WSJ. Radiation level spikes 60-fold in seconds nearby. Alrighty then. Moving on. E&E News, Energy News, U.S. Canada. Heads up, fire breaks out at a U.S. nuclear plant. Reactor shut down. Emergency alert lasts over 5 hours due to equipment malfunction. Residents discuss fears after many recent problems. Alrighty. And it says AP, January 18, 2014, fire breaks out at NC, I guess it's North Carolina nuclear plant. NC nuclear plant. Officials say operators shut down the plant when an alert was declared Saturday morning. WRAL. January 18, 2014. The morning, Duke Energy notified the emergency management agencies for the state and 4 counties within close proximity to the Harris nuclear plant of an equipment malfunction. State Department of Public Safety Secretary Frank Perry said in a statement. So heads up, if you are by the Harris nuclear plant. Alrighty then. Wow. That's all I have there that's new. Wow. Alright, everybody, please be safe. Be safe. And I'll see you again tomorrow on the flip side. I hope there's a break in this cold now. You know, it's very cold. Very cold. Temperature keeps dropping. Alrighty then. See you again tomorrow on the flip side. Be safe. Make sure your animals are inside, your plants are covered up. And I'll see you again tomorrow, if you're in Florida. Alright, take care.
I'm Connor Nixon. I'm a planetary scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, and I study the atmospheric composition of the outer planets. Titan is Saturn's largest moon. It's actually the second largest moon in the solar system, and it's the only moon in the solar system that has a large and substantial atmosphere. And that atmosphere in some respects is really similar to that of the Earth, being composed mainly of nitrogen, but in other respects it's really different. It has methane as its second most abundant gas, and that takes the same role as water vapor in the Earth's atmosphere. It evaporates from the surface, it forms clouds, and then rains down again, and in fact forms lakes that we see at Titan's North Pole, including ethane and propane and all sorts of complex chemicals. We also see these vast dune fields at the equator, which are not made of silicates as they are on the Earth, but actually made of organic substances, essentially plastics, which have actually sedimented from the atmosphere and are being blown around into dune fields, the same as we'd see on a desert on the Earth. Back in 1980, when Voyager 1 flew by Titan and made the first close encounter with that moon, it discovered many new chemical species in the atmosphere. And a lot of these are what we call hydrocarbons, which are composed of 2 types of atom, carbon and hydrogen. And these are derived from methane. After the methane is broken apart by sunlight, it forms into longer and longer chain molecules. So you can add first 2 carbons together to make a family of molecules. And you can also form 3 carbons together to form a heavier family of molecules. So it was actually very mysterious that Voyager only discovered the heaviest and lightest members of the 3 carbon family, but it didn't find the middle member of the family, propylene, that was missing. So NASA has this wonderful flagship spacecraft called Cassini, which is currently orbiting Saturn and is making multiple close flybys of Titan. Now in visible light, Titan appears quite bland and featureless, just like an orange globe, but Cassini has techniques to peer through that haze, including the composite infrared spectrometer, or SEERS, which can look at the heat coming from the atmosphere and split it apart into its different frequencies, and this forms a characteristic pattern of peaks which give the characteristic signatures of different molecules. And through this we can detect which molecules are in the atmosphere. We see all the molecules that were previously discovered by Voyager. But we're also able to look for new molecules, and in fact, buried within the signatures of these more abundant molecular species, we saw a very small spike, which was due to a new species which had not been seen before. In fact, this was propylene. We saw it at multiple altitudes in Titan's atmosphere. When we added all the signal together, we had more than 99% confidence that we were discovering a new molecule. So this object I have right here, this is polypropylene. This is a plastic we use on the Earth in everyday household objects, such as this plastic tub here. And if we turn it over on the bottom, we find a symbol, the number 5, that says PP, polypropylene. This is the propylene that we found on Titan, but polymerized. That means that the molecule is formed into long chains, and when these chains are tangled together, it forms a hard, clear plastic that we use in many household objects. So that was really fun for me to realize that something that we discovered in space was in fact something that I was touching every day on the Earth. So the discovery of propylene on Titan is really exciting. First of all, it completes this chemical family where we had this missing link dating 32 years back to Voyager. But also it shows that there's much more there still in Titan's atmosphere to be discovered. Some people think that Titan is similar to the prebiotic Earth long ago, when the molecules were forming the basis of life. And we don't know what we're going to find on Titan if we send back further spacecraft with new instruments, more sensitive instruments, if some of the molecules on Titan could be similar to the basis of life on Earth.
Jupiter is the 5th planet from the Sun and the largest planet within the solar system. It has 64 moons, and one moon is more special than the others. Its name is Europa. This moon is full of ice. The ice, which is about 3 kilometers thick, is all around the moon, but nobody knew if there was water under this ice until now. Scientists studied the pictures of Europa, and they found out that some parts of ice show there is water underneath the icy surface. Europa is a very cold moon, but the gravitational pull of Jupiter is so big that it changes the shape of Europa, and these changes make the moon's center warm. NASA is building a special radar which should prove that water on Europa really exists.